Aggravated assaults in American cities increased by 8% in 2023 compared to 2019. My bill, the Keeping Offenders Off the Street Act, protects our communities by making a small but very important change to define bail bonds as an insurance product so that they may and must comply with federal insurance fraud laws and background check requirements. This change would also bring charitable bail funds under state insurance regulation, giving states the ability to better scrutinize the use of these funds. We've seen charitable bail funds, in particular, grow out of control following the George Floyd riots. The Minnesota Freedom Fund saw revenues increase to $42 million between 2019 and 2020. No doubt benefited from Senator Kamala Harris tweeting and encouraging her supporters to help fundraise for the group. Of course, we now know that the fund bailed out at least 65 violent offenders. They were awaiting trial on felony charges involving violence, physical threats, or sex crimes. This will bring needed oversight to this organization. There's 90 of these funds right now nationwide, and we look forward to seeing it pass on the floor this week. I'll turn it over to Congressman Emmer.
Thank you, Scott. At this moment, the House Financial Services Committee is starting its hearing with Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler. In an era where bipartisanship can feel scarce, Gensler has done such a terrible job running the SEC that he has managed to unite members on both sides of the aisle condemning his failed leadership. Gary Gensler has worked to consolidate his own power, even though it means crushing opportunities and, frankly, the financial future of this country. Rogue bureaucrats like Gensler are supposed to be working for the people, not reigning over them. He has wasted a large part of the SEC's resources to wage war on the crypto industry. The strategy, however, has not been successful for him as the SEC continues to lose again and again in the courts on its crusade against the digital asset innovation in this country. It's time for the SEC to return to its mission and protect opportunities for every American who wants to participate in the greatest capital markets in the world. Digital asset innovation is an important part of that. What Gary Gensler doesn't understand is fighting against crypto innovation in America isn't going to stop it. He is only going to push crypto innovation off of American soil. This is exactly how disasters like FTX occur. The United States should want digital asset businesses under its regulatory umbrella and purview so that we have a safer digital asset ecosystem. Many people are concerned that Kamala Harris would actually appoint Elizabeth Warren or Gary Gensler to be her Treasury Secretary, which would only make matters worse. Their mission to upend free markets, innovation, and global competitiveness would destroy our financial system. We can't let that happen. America is ready for the pro-crypto president, and there's only one candidate who has promised to fire Gary Gensler on day one. I look forward to participating in this committee hearing after I leave here and to holding Chairman Gensler's feet to the fire for the war that he has waged against our financial system. I turn it over to our majority leader.
I'll have to tune in watching the hockey guy holding Gensler accountable. That will be much needed entertainment and critical policy. Devastation that they've done to so many markets. Crypto is one of, unfortunately, many markets that they've gone after. This week is our last week in session before the election, but it is a very busy week, as you can see from the schedule. A lot of different bills being brought to the floor. Scott Fitzgerald just talked about one of them that's so important. You know, we've seen crime grow in our communities. We've seen these funds like the Minnesota Freedom Fund that are designed to help get criminals out of jail. And of course, Kamala Harris was there front and center raising millions of dollars for that fund. And what did it do? It helped get people out of jail who were who were out there in the middle of what they called the summer of love, who were attacking police officers, burning down police stations, other violent crimes where she was leading the charge to get them out of jail, the criminals, not protect the police officers. In fact, she's made public statements over the last few years criticizing the idea of adding more police to communities. And yet when you look at some of the cities that have the worst crime, who initially went down the failed road of defunding the police and then saw the devastation it caused in their communities, they're trying to hire more police officers now. And they're struggling to do it because they at least finally recognize they made a mistake. But once you taint that office by showing a community that the leadership of a city doesn't support the police, police will go elsewhere. You know, good existing police officers go to other departments. Young people who want a career in law enforcement are not going to go to a place where it's so volatile that they know that the leadership of that community doesn't have their back. So they go to other places where they know that the local community will have their back. And so that is the devastation of, you know, that kind of attitude of defunding police, demonizing police that people like Kamala Harris have supported over the years. You know, when we leave here to go across the country in October, and as much as we're going to miss you in this venue, maybe we'll come back every week, Mike, I don't know, we'll, you know, do that once a week and see who shows up, but more than likely that won't happen, but we will see you out on the road if you're there. But when you go to swing districts where a lot of us will be, you see the same thing playing out in every community, whether it's a swing state like Pennsylvania, where it just was last week, or whether it's you know, a community in California where they've got swing districts. You're hearing people express the same frustration with the Biden-Harris administration. The open border is still the top issue they bring up, and they're furious about it. And yet Kamala continues to do nothing while she's over there in the White House. She could go walk in the White House today and ask the president to reverse his policies that opened up the border, but she won't, because she wants an open border. She's wanted that open border all her life. Again, she's on video talking about how she wants to legalize people who come here illegally. And then when she tries to express, well, maybe I'm now for a secure border, and she's pressed on it, she says, my values haven't changed. Her values are far left liberal. They've been that way her whole life. She wants to ban fracking. She hasn't changed her views on that. She wants to have an open border. Her views haven't changed on that either. You've seen her radical views. She cast a tie-breaking vote, as our conference chair, Elise, just talked about, to create the inflation that I hear about in every community I go to. Higher costs at the grocery store, higher costs at the gas station. Those are a direct result of not just the Biden administration's policies, but Kamala Harris's vote. And I'm not talking about in the Senate, where she might have been with 60 other people. I'm talking about Kamala Harris's vote when it was a 50-50 tie. And it could have gone down with her vote, and we could have had lower inflation with her vote, but instead she used her vote to raise inflation, her tie-breaking vote that jacked up the inflation that's crushing low and middle income families today. Her tie-breaking vote, Kamala Harris, was the vote that doubled the size of the IRS. And now some of those new agents that they've hired are going after the waiters and waitresses, making them pay higher taxes on tips. And then she claims that she wants to get rid of the tax on tips, yet she sicked an army of new IRS agents after those very same waiters and waitresses. So what she's done has consequences. We're going to be talking about this contrast because Donald Trump wants lower tax rates. Donald Trump wants to secure our border, and he did it before. Donald Trump wants sound tax policy where lower and middle income families can actually benefit from the growth that comes with a healthy economy. Unfortunately, we don't have that today, but we had it when Donald Trump was president of the United States last time. And so when you look at all of those things, and not to mention, of course, he's always supported our men and women in uniform, and he'll continue to do that again. He'll stand up to the bad guys around the world. And right now, America is letting the bad guys around the world run roughshod over our allies and doing harm to America as well with no consequence. All that will change if we get President Trump back in office. And that contrast, I think, is going to be sharply shown through the month of October leading into the election November 5th. We're also going to vote today or tomorrow on the CR. And, you know, this is always a tough negotiation. The Senate wanted to try to spend more money, and our speaker stood up to the Senate and said, no, we're not going to do that. They wanted to play this Christmas Eve omni game that they used to play, having an omnibus dropped on Christmas Eve. And nobody's read the bill and it just gets voted on, everybody leaves town. We said no to that last year. And Mike Johnson, as speaker, is saying no to that again this year, which is so important to say, we're going to change the way Washington works. We passed over 70% of the spending bills out of the House. The Senate has passed zero, not a single bill out of the Senate. And so how do you have a negotiation when one side refuses to do their job? And so we're going to continue to at least do our job, and that starts tomorrow on the CR. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Speaker of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Thanks to all of you to being here. This is the last one for a while until the election. We're in the home stretch, and we're exactly 6 weeks out from the election now. It'll be here before we know it. Can't get here soon enough from our perspective. Voters in Virginia, Minnesota, and South Dakota are already casting the first votes in the nation. They began that Friday, and in the next 2 weeks, there'll be a number of states commence early voting around the country. And yet, millions of Americans, as our majority leader was just articulating here, they have no idea where Kamala Harris stands on major issues, and they have no way to ascertain that because she refuses to sit down for real interviews. No tough questions have been asked, and so people are just left to wonder. I think that's a big reason that our team is going to win in November. I'm very confident about this. I believe we're going to keep and grow the House majority, win the Senate, and win the White House as well, and we're going to put Donald Trump back in the office. When the continuing resolution comes up on the floor this week, we expect that to pass by a wide margin. Let me just be clear. Everybody heard me here last week say that I thought the best play under the circumstances was the CR with the SAVE Act. It's about a 90% issue in the country, no matter where we are in the country. Everybody understands that only U.S. citizens should vote in U.S. elections. This was our opportunity to both fund the government and ensure the security of the election, but we came a little short of the goal line. So we have to go with the last available play. By the way, I'll say that the 206 House Democrats that voted against that SAVE Act, most of them twice, I have to explain that back home. I'm not sure how they can. But what we're going to do this week, as you know, is a very narrow, bare bones CR to do only what's absolutely necessary. As was noted, the Democrats wanted to load it up with billions of dollars in new spending, but we fought them off from that. We did add $231 million in new Secret Service funds, but everybody understands that that's critically important right now. We added strings attached to it. We said it was contingent upon the Secret Service participating fully in our oversight responsibilities and investigations right now, and I am certainly hopeful that they will. They will need to if they expect to have the additional funds. Also, we made sure that that was kept within the spending cap, so it's not new money, but that will help us. We did expand our task force, as you know, on the assassination to add the second assassination attempt, and I think that's really important. But overall, with the CR, as our leader just noted, we have broken the Christmas omni, and I have no intention of going back to that terrible tradition. So there won't be a Christmas omnibus. As somebody asked me in the hallway a little while ago, will there be many buses? We don't want any buses. We're not going to do any buses. Okay, we'll deal with that in the lame duck, and I'm going to plead, I'm going to urge the Senate to do their job. As Leader Scalise noted, they have not done that. This is Chuck Schumer's fault. It is not the House Republicans that we're in the position where we have to have a resolution to continue funding the government at the end of the fiscal year. We did our work. We passed 12 appropriations bills through the committee process in record time. We put them on the floor. Almost 73% of federal funding has been passed through the House. We sent it all over to the Senate, and they've done nothing. They did not one bill, and they would not negotiate with us on the top line. So here we are. We loathe CRs as much as anyone, but this is the situation that the Senate Democrat leadership put us in. It would be political malpractice to shut the government down. I think everyone understands that, and so we hope that this will get done quickly and we get everybody back home to their districts to work and to the campaign trail. Speaking of political malpractice, Secretary Janet Yellen has a new op-ed out trying to tout the, quote, Biden-Harris economic success. Good luck with that. It's a piece of utter fiction, as the campaign is. They're running a campaign of fiction and not fact. Under the Biden-Harris administration, American savings are at record lows. Go look it up. You all know it. Inflation and interest rates reach 40-year highs thanks to their multi-trillion-dollar spending packages. Home ownership for young families is now out of reach, and more than half of Americans currently can't afford a $1,000 emergency. I read a stat the other day, I might have mentioned this, it's been a couple weeks ago now, it's so sad, but GoFundMe, the website, said that the number of new pages opened to open GoFundMe accounts to prevent eviction from homes is up 40% over last year alone. We should just hang that on a banner at every Kamala Harris event. She aims to double down on all those failed policies that enabled these disastrous outcomes, and we are offering a different path. As I explained at the America First Policy Institute last week, we have an ambitious plan that will ensure that our economy and tax code incentivize prosperity for the American taxpayer and not this despair that the other team has wrought. With a unified Republican government, we will promote investment and opportunity. We'll prioritize America and our manufacturers and businesses. We'll reform education. We'll reinvigorate our energy sector. And we'll bring back fiscal sanity. The American people demand and deserve that relief, and we will hit the ground running in January to provide it. Two final notes. This week on the floor, we'll continue our work to confront Communist China. The Stop CCP Act is an important measure. 2 weeks ago, we passed 28 bills to protect our constituents, our infrastructure, and our intellectual property from the CCP. This week, we'll impose financial and visa sanctions on members of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. And even though these are some of the most malign actors in the world, it's worthy of note that the White House, the Biden-Harris White House, issued a preemptive veto threat. The American people should know that unlike the current administration, House Republicans will not treat China and Xi Jinping with kid gloves. Finally, I mentioned the task force. We've expanded the scope to the second assassination attempt. The first hearing will be Thursday. They've done a lot of work behind the scenes. They've interviewed dozens of witnesses. They've gathered thousands of documents. They've been doing the work to lead up to the hearing, and I know there'll be a lot of interest in that. We have to ensure that major candidates for president receive the same level of Secret Service protection as the sitting president. We've made that demand. We passed a bill on the floor to do it, and we need the Senate to make the same demand. We know the American people desire and deserve answers, and the task force is working around the clock to deliver them, and I expect all of you will be tuned in on Thursday to cover the hearing, and we'll talk about it after that. So I'll take a few questions.
Mr. Speaker, do you commit to observing regular order in the certification process of the 2024 election, even if Kamala Harris beats Donald Trump?
Well, of course, if we have a free, fair, and safe election, we're going to follow the Constitution. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, do you plan to meet with President Zelensky when he was here at the Capitol on Thursday?
I don't know if it's on the schedule or not. Our Thursday is very fluid here, depending on the CR, so we'll have to see what happens. Yes, sir. Becky.
Speaker, right now there's a hurricane headed toward the Gulf Coast. You and Majority Leader Scalise from Louisiana, you're familiar with the danger of hurricanes. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to remove the disaster funding from FEMA from the CR from the first to the second?
Yeah, the DERF is fully funded, as the leader mentions. We're going to handle a lot of this in the lame duck. If we loaded up the CR with extra new expenses, it makes it more difficult for everyone to get over the line. Obviously, we empathize with everyone on the Gulf Coast because we get hit with hurricanes in Louisiana regularly. I'm grateful, and our prayer today is that this one does not concentrate on its strength. It looks like it might be a smaller level event. We certainly hope that's true. But this is part of the reason our schedule for the end of the week is fluid, because we've got a lot of Floridians. It's a big delegation. They're anxious to get home, so we'll see how that affects the schedule of the week. So, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The New York Times reported yesterday, I'm sure you saw, that one of your members, Mr. D'Esposito of New York, reportedly was putting a family member as well as a woman with whom he was having an affair on the congressional payroll. Number one, was that wrong of him to do that? And number two, would you support an ethics investigation into the matter?
Look, I'm not going to make any detailed statement on this because I don't know the details. I've been very busy the last 48 hours or so. I'm aware that there's this issue out there and these allegations. I haven't had a chance yet to speak with Anthony. He did, I'm told this morning, come out with a statement that the allegations are untrue. It's a partisan hit piece. That would not surprise anyone in a tight election cycle in a seat that's hotly contested. But he's been a very strong advocate for his district. I've been up there a lot. I know the people of his district, and they are great champions of him and he of them. And so what we're focusing on right now is getting the government funding situation resolved and headed home to win the election, and that's where I'm going to leave that. Yes, front row.
Mr. Speaker, have you spoken with former President Trump about this CR specifically, and has he approved it, given that he said he doesn't want a CR without the SAVE Act in it?
Yeah, no, what he was saying last week is the exact same thing that I was saying. He and I have been on exactly the same page. I saw a headline, I'm defying Trump. I'm not defying President Trump. I've spoken with him at great length, and he is very frustrated about the situation. His great concern is election security, and it is mine as well. It is all of ours. We are really seriously concerned about this, and we got to do everything that we can to ensure it. Congress, we passed the SAVE Act in the summer, and it's been sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk collecting dust. That is maddening to us. He understands fully, President Trump understands the current dilemma and the situation that we're in, and so there's no daylight between us, and I keep him apprised all the time of everything that's happening because he is our nominee for president, and he's going to be the next president. So we'll continue working closely together. I'm not defying President Trump. We're getting our job done, and I think he understands that. So thank you all. Appreciate the time.
We have this weaponization committee hearing tomorrow. Are you going to keep the weaponization committee in the new Congress if President Trump wins and if Republicans have the House? Will there be a need to